Have you ever felt like your body is holding you back, especially as you age? Are the activities you once enjoyed now a distant memory, replaced by the frustration of limited mobility? You're not alone. Many older adults face this challenge. But what if we told you that you don't have to let these changes define your life? What if, instead of limiting your life, they could inspire you to discover new ways to move, connect, and thrive? In this video, we'll explore 7 powerful strategies to help you maintain your mobility, improve your balance, and continue living a fulfilling life, even if you're walking less than you used to. Whether you're dealing with arthritis, recovering from an injury, or simply experiencing the natural effects of aging, we've got inspiring stories and practical advice that can make a real difference in your life. From chair-based exercises to aquatic workouts, strength training, and more, we'll show you how to stay active, confident, and independent, no matter your age. These proven methods aren't just about movement. They're about reclaiming joy, enhancing your emotional well-being, and connecting with a supportive community. Plus, we'll share expert tips and resources that you can start using today to make lasting improvements. So if you're ready to take control of your health and discover new possibilities, stay with us until the end. This video could be the first step towards a more active, vibrant, and joyful future. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Story number 1. Practicing chair-based exercise. Maria, at 68 years old, had always found freedom and fulfillment in dancing. It wasn't just a hobby for her, it was the rhythm of her life, the way she expressed every part of herself, and her unique connection to the world around her. She could lose herself in the music, her body moving gracefully, and for those precious moments, nothing else mattered. The joy of dancing had been her constant companion for years. But then came osteoarthritis, an insidious thief that took away the very thing that made her feel alive. Walking, once effortless, became painful, each step reminding her of the vibrant, active woman she once was. And with each passing day, as the pain grew, Maria felt like she was losing a piece of herself. The idea of living a life confined to a chair, unable to move the way she once had, was suffocating. She felt her world shrinking, and a deep, heartbreaking sadness settled in her heart. The thought of never dancing again was almost too much to bear. For a while, she nearly gave up. It felt like her body had betrayed her, and the dreams she had held onto for so long were slipping away. But Maria's doctor, a kind and understanding person, offered a glimmer of hope when he suggested chair-based exercises. At first, Maria scoffed at the idea. How could something so simple possibly compare to the passion, grace, and joy that dancing had once given her? She doubted it would make a difference. After all, what was the point if it couldn't replace the rhythm of the dance floor? But as much as she hesitated, she decided to give it a try, if only to quiet the voice of doubt in her mind. To her surprise, chair yoga became a lifeline for Maria. It wasn't the same as dancing, of course, but it was movement, a way for her to reconnect with her body, to feel the flow of energy and strength return in a form she never imagined. Slowly, it began to work. The exercises gently strengthened her muscles, improved her balance, and stretched her body in ways that didn't hurt or strain her joints. She started to feel like herself again. She could move, she could breathe, and with each session, she discovered a sense of joy that had been missing for so long. Maria, once again, could express herself, even if it wasn't in the same way she was used to. The rhythm of her body still existed, and she found herself subtly adding her old dance moves into the mix, creating her dance of healing and acceptance. What Maria didn't expect was that this new chapter would also bring new friendships into her life. She met people in her chair yoga class who understood her struggles, who celebrated every tiny victory, and who shared stories of their journeys with pain and recovery. The bond they formed was profound. These were people who didn't just see her as someone with arthritis, but as a person with dreams, with strength, and with a heart that still longed to dance. The group became a source of unwavering support, a reminder that even in the most difficult moments, there is still room for joy, laughter, and connection. Maria's journey through chair-based exercises didn't just restore her body, it restored her spirit. It wasn't the same as dancing in the way she once did, but it was enough. It was more than enough. And for the first time in a long time, Maria felt that her world wasn't getting smaller. It was expanding again, in ways she had never expected. She rediscovered hope, strength, and the belief that no matter what obstacles life placed in her path, there was always a way to move forward. Story number 2. The power of aquatic exercise. John had always been a man who took pride in his strength and independence. But after his hip surgery, at the age of 75, he found himself facing a battle he hadn't anticipated. One that wasn't just physical, but emotional too. The surgery had been a success, yes, but the recovery process was a relentless and seemingly endless struggle. Each day felt like a test of his patience and willpower. The fear of falling and re-injuring himself haunted him like a shadow. The thought of another fall was unbearable, and so he chose to avoid exercise altogether. It felt like the only safe way to protect himself, but in reality, it only made things worse. His muscles weakened, his joints stiffened, and the feeling of vulnerability took root deeper in his heart. John found himself feeling trapped in his own body, unable to move freely, unable to be the person he once was. It was as if his body had betrayed him. When his physical therapist suggested aquatic exercise, John couldn't help but feel skeptical. The water seemed like a foreign realm to him now, a place where his once athletic body felt awkward and out of place. He couldn't even swim properly anymore, and the idea of being seen struggling in front of others filled him with embarrassment. How could he possibly exercise in a way that might help him, when he couldn't even face his limitations? But the therapist was persistent, assuring John that even the gentlest of movements in the water could make a world of difference, and as much as John dreaded it, he agreed to give it a try. And oh, how everything changed. The moment John stepped into the water, something shifted. The buoyancy of the water cradled him, taking the weight off his aching joints. It was as though the water was holding him up in a way he'd never felt before. The gentle resistance of the water as he moved his limbs slowly and steadily allowed him to rebuild strength without the harsh impact he feared. The most surprising part? The emotional transformation that followed. For the first time in months, John felt a sense of freedom that he thought was long gone. There was no stiffness, no overwhelming fear, just the soothing motion of his body moving in sync with the water. It wasn't just a physical exercise, it was a chance to heal his mind, to reconnect with the man he used to be. The fear that had consumed him began to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of lightness and ease. His body, which had felt like a prison, suddenly seemed more like a vessel of possibility. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. In those moments, John discovered the joy of movement once again. The water became his sanctuary, a sacred space where he didn't just strengthen his body, but nurtured his spirit as well. He learned that healing wasn't just about fixing the body, it was about reclaiming the soul. In the embrace of the water, John found his freedom. And for the first time in a long while, he knew he was not defined by his limitations. He was defined by his resilience, his willingness to try again, and the healing that began with each small movement in the water. Story number 3. Walking aids, your allies in mobility. Sarah, a fiercely independent woman in her 80s, had long resisted using a walker. To her, it felt like an admission of defeat, a public symbol of aging, and a tangible marker of vulnerability she wasn't ready to accept. She imagined that if she used a walker, she would appear fragile, as though she were surrendering to time, to the inevitable march of years that she'd spent her whole life defying. The very thought filled her with discomfort, a bitter taste of what she feared, looking old. So, even though her balance had become more unstable over the years, and despite the multiple close calls where she nearly lost her footing, Sarah clung to her pride. She told herself that as long as she didn't use the walker, she could still manage, that she was still strong enough to get by on her own. But one fateful day, while walking to the grocery store, Sarah's world tilted in a way she couldn't ignore. As she teetered, her legs shaking, she felt the ground slip beneath her, and for a terrifying moment, she was sure she would fall. Her heart raced, a rush of panic flooded her chest, and in that instant, her determination to avoid looking frail became painfully clear. She wasn't protecting her independence. She was gambling with her safety, and the price of that gamble might have been far too high. That near fall was the wake-up call she needed. The reality of the situation hit her hard. Her pride was keeping her from living fully, from embracing a safer, more balanced life. She realized that the fear of appearing old had clouded her judgment, stopping her from seeing that using a walker didn't mean she was giving up. It meant she was choosing life. She had spent decades living independently, and now, using a walker would allow her to maintain that independence, only with added safety and confidence. It was not the end of her autonomy. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she could walk with assurance and joy, not fear and hesitation. The decision to finally embrace the walker wasn't easy, but it was a profound moment of self-realization. It wasn't about how others might see her, it was about how she saw herself. The walker was no longer a symbol of weakness. It became a symbol of strength. It was a tool for reclaiming her freedom, a means to continue exploring her neighborhood, visiting the farmer's market, greeting friends, and even strolling to the park, all with a renewed sense of security. Sarah felt the weight lift from her shoulders as she discovered that using a walker didn't take away her dignity. It returned to her the very freedom she feared losing. With each step, she walked with confidence, and more importantly, she walked with peace of mind. That walker wasn't just a piece of equipment. It was her ally, her companion in the journey of life, enabling her to enjoy the world around her once more. Story number 4. Strength training for stability. David's legs felt like traitors, each step a reminder that the once strong, dependable limbs he had relied on throughout his life were beginning to betray him. At the age of 78, every day felt like a battle as his legs weakened further, leaving him struggling with even the simplest tasks, like rising from a chair, climbing a single flight of stairs, or carrying a bag of groceries. Each small effort seemed more taxing than the last, and with every defeat, his world seemed to shrink just a little more. His independence, once a source of pride, was slipping through his fingers, and he could feel his confidence draining away. He was terrified that he was being doomed to a life of increasing immobility, forever confined to the limits of his own body. He tried searching for solutions, experimenting with exercises he found online. But each attempt only seemed to reinforce his fears. The movements were too difficult, and his muscles screamed in protest. The frustration was overwhelming. Every workout felt like a risk, and a deep, underlying fear of injury gripped him. What if he pushed too hard and hurt himself? In those moments, his spirit sagged, and he doubted whether any of it was worth it. Was this really how the rest of his life was going to look? Then, like a beacon of hope, his doctor suggested something that turned his world around. Working with a personal trainer who specialized in helping older adults. This was a life-changing decision, but it came with its wave of apprehension. The thought of putting his trust in someone else, of exposing his vulnerabilities and struggles, was daunting. But when he met his new trainer, he felt a sense of calm. The trainer's kind, patient demeanor was a stark contrast to the fear and doubt David had been carrying. Together, they crafted a program tailored specifically to David's needs, one that would take him step by step, gently building his strength. It started slow, very slow, with light weights and resistance bands that felt almost too easy at first. But this slow approach was exactly what David needed. The trainer made sure he understood the importance of form and technique, emphasizing safety to prevent any further injuries. David began to realize that this wasn't just about lifting weights or doing exercises. It was about relearning how to move with purpose and regain control over his body, piece by piece. The journey was anything but easy. There were days when his muscles ached so deeply he thought he might never be able to continue. The frustration of slow progress threatened to overwhelm him, and there were moments when giving up seemed like the only option. But something shifted inside of him. He realized that strength wasn't just about physical capacity. It was about mental resilience. He began to celebrate the small victories, the days when he could lift just a little more weight or when he noticed that the stairs didn't feel as daunting. Each tiny improvement was a triumph. Little by little, his muscles grew stronger, and with each passing day, his confidence soared. He didn't just regain strength, he regained his sense of self. He could now lift groceries without grimacing in pain, could run around with his grandchildren without feeling winded, and could confidently navigate stairs without fear. He felt steady again, not just in his body but in his spirit. His independence returned, and with it, a renewed sense of freedom. The most incredible moment of all came when he joined a local hiking group. At one point, he thought he would never walk another trail again, that the outdoors would remain out of reach. But there he was, standing tall with a smile on his face, taking that first step into a new chapter of his life. In that moment, David realized that strength training had given him far more than just physical power. It had given him a new outlook on life, and a freedom he hadn't dared dream of in years. Story number 5. The importance of regular stretching. Eleanor had always been a vibrant and active woman, but as the years passed, her body began to betray her. By the time she turned 80, her joints were stiff, and the constant aches in her muscles were unbearable. It wasn't just the occasional discomfort, it was chronic pain, an ever-present reminder of the passage of time. Everyday activities, ones that most people took for granted, became monumental tasks. Getting dressed felt like a chore, bending down to tie her shoes seemed like an insurmountable obstacle, and the thought of bending over to pick up something she dropped made her cringe. The pain was both physical and emotional, leaving Eleanor feeling helpless and defeated. She felt trapped in a body that no longer responded the way it used to. It was as though her age had suddenly become an unscalable mountain, and she had given up hope that she could climb it. The fear of moving, the constant worry that any wrong movement might worsen the pain, held her back. She thought, stretching is for young people with no pain. At my age, what's the point? It's too late for me to change anything now. She thought it was something that could only be useful for people who didn't already have decades of wear and tear on their bodies. But then came the day when her doctor, with a kind yet firm voice, explained the truth she had been avoiding. Stretching was vital for maintaining flexibility, especially as we age. It wasn't just a luxury or something for the younger generation. It was a necessity for reducing pain and maintaining mobility. He offered her hope where she thought none existed. He suggested gentle stretches that could be done from the comfort of her own home and referred her to a physical therapist who would teach her the proper techniques to safely restore her flexibility. At first, Eleanor was scared, terrified, even. Could she do it? What if she made things worse? The fear of hurting herself kept her paralyzed in her hesitation. But something deep within her stirred. Maybe it was the thought of regaining some control over her life, or the idea of holding on to just a little more freedom, that finally pushed her to take the first step. She started slowly, with the simplest stretches, each movement feeling more foreign than the last. But with every cautious attempt, Eleanor felt something change. She was not only easing the physical tension that had taken root in her body, but she was releasing emotional burdens she hadn't even realized she was carrying. As the days passed, the stiffness in her joints lessened. The pain, once constant and relentless, became something she could handle. It was no longer an all-consuming force. She started to feel the possibility of movement again, the joy of bending down to tend her beloved garden, a simple pleasure she had thought was lost forever. It was as if her body was remembering what it could do, and in turn, her spirit felt lighter, more hopeful. A long-forgotten sense of independence returned, and she found herself taking daily walks with her dog, something that seemed impossible just months earlier. Stretching became more than just a physical activity. It became a gateway to emotional release, to healing that went beyond her muscles. It taught her that it wasn't too late to take control of her health. It wasn't just about bending and stretching her body. It was about stretching her heart, letting go of years of built-up frustration, fear, and doubt. It was the kind of transformation that transcended physicality and reached deep into the soul. She learned that age wasn't a barrier, but an opportunity for rebirth, an opportunity to let go of the past and embrace the possibilities of the future, one stretch at a time. Story number 6. Balance Training. Robert's life took an unexpected turn when a fall in his early 70s shattered his sense of security. It wasn't just the physical pain that lingered, it was the crippling fear that followed. Every step he took after that fall felt like a gamble. He found himself constantly on edge, convinced that the next misstep would send him crashing to the ground again. That fear gripped him in ways he never anticipated, slowly eroding his confidence and making him feel trapped in his own home. The simple act of stepping out for a walk felt like a daunting challenge. The world outside his door had suddenly become a source of anxiety, and he felt completely alone in that battle. When his daughter suggested Tai Chi as a way to regain his balance, Robert recoiled. "That's too slow for me," he thought. "And what about my lack of coordination? I'll just embarrass myself." His mind raced with doubts, but there was a part of him that, despite his reservations, felt a spark of curiosity. Could something so gentle help? Desperate for a change, he decided to give it a shot, but he had no idea that this small decision would lead to a profound transformation. What he discovered through Tai Chi wasn't just the grace of slow movements. It was the rediscovery of his body's strength, balance, and coordination, something he thought he had lost forever. Each movement, no matter how slow or deliberate, was a step toward building something stronger within himself. The practice didn't just stabilize him physically, it started to heal him emotionally. As he moved through the fluid motions, he felt a sense of grounding, like his feet were firmly planted on the earth beneath him. The fear that once paralyzed him began to loosen its grip. His newfound confidence bloomed. What had once seemed impossible, walking with purpose and assurance, became a joy again. Robert was no longer weighed down by the constant fear of falling. He could move freely, without hesitation, and even more astonishingly, he found himself sharing this newfound strength with others. He began teaching Tai Chi at his local senior center, pouring his heart into the classes, knowing how much the practice had transformed his life. It wasn't just about balance anymore, it was about connection, about empowering others who, like him, had faced the daunting weight of fear. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. For the first time in years, Robert didn't feel isolated. The fear had been replaced with a sense of purpose, and the community he built around Tai Chi became his anchor. He was no longer just a man who had fallen. He was a man who had risen, who was helping others rise with him. Walking through the park once again felt liberating, not burdened by fear, but fueled by the joy of movement. As he looked around at the faces of his students, he realized he had not only regained his balance, he had rediscovered a sense of belonging, empowerment, and most of all, hope. Story number 7. Listen to your body and pace yourself. Margaret, a woman in her early 70s, was full of determination. She refused to let aging slow her down, believing that staying active was the key to maintaining her vitality. Every day, she laced up her shoes and set out for a walk, pushing herself to keep pace with younger versions of herself. However, in her determination to stay strong, she often ignored the subtle yet telling signs her body was giving her. The aches, the stiffness in her joints, the little twinges of discomfort, all these were her body's desperate attempts to get her to slow down, to take a break, but Margaret, ever so resolute, pushed through them, convinced that if she just kept going, she would maintain her health. But it wasn't long before the exhaustion set in. She would return home, drained of energy, frustrated with herself for not being able to keep up with the pace she set. Worse still, there were times when pushing herself too hard resulted in injuries. Small, but enough to keep her off her feet for days, sometimes even weeks. These setbacks were disheartening, especially when she realized that they were entirely avoidable. One day, as she sat resting after yet another painful episode, she had an epiphany. The idea of staying active wasn't about pushing her body beyond its limits. It wasn't about sprinting to some impossible finish line of youth. No, the key was finding a sustainable rhythm. A way to keep moving, without overtaxing her body. A way to honor her body's needs instead of rebelling against them. From that moment on, Margaret started listening more closely to what her body was telling her. She began recognizing when fatigue was creeping in, when the familiar aches were signaling that it was time to rest. Instead of forcing herself to finish long walks, she began taking shorter walks, embracing the idea that even the smallest step forward was still a step. But what truly surprised her was how much more she enjoyed these walks. The pressure to push herself was gone, and in its place was a space to appreciate the world around her. Those simple moments of joy, the fresh air, the sounds of nature, and most importantly, the connection with her friends. No longer did she rush, but instead, she allowed herself to savor every second. She also realized something profound during this process. Rest wasn't a sign of weakness. Rest was just as essential as exercise. It was the missing piece to a fuller, more fulfilling life. Margaret learned the importance of balance, how rest, recovery, and mindful movement were key to her continued mobility and happiness. She didn't need to be hard on herself anymore. Her body deserved respect, patience, and understanding. It was a lesson in self-compassion, a realization that by being gentle with herself, she could still enjoy all the wonderful things life had to offer, even if those walks were shorter and less frequent. So, if you're in a similar place, remember Margaret's journey. It's not about striving to meet some unrealistic standard. It's about listening to your body, respecting its limits, and finding a pace that works for you. It's about doing what feels good, not pushing for perfection. To help you maintain your mobility and lead a more fulfilling life, here are 7 simple actions to take, even if you find yourself walking less. Explore chair-based exercises. Consider aquatic exercise. Embrace walking aids. Incorporate strength training. Stretch regularly. Focus on balance training. Listen to your body and pace yourself. This is your chance to take action today. Reach out to the resources we've shared below. Consult your doctor, a physical therapist, or other healthcare professionals. Connect with your local senior center or community center. And remember, it's okay to move at your own pace. You deserve to live fully, no matter the speed at which you walk. As we wrap up today's video, take a moment to reflect on what you've learned. The journey to maintaining your mobility and well-being isn't about perfection. It's about listening to your body, being kind to yourself, and finding a rhythm that works for you. So, what's one thing you've learned today that you're excited to bring into your own life? Maybe it's the importance of pacing yourself, or perhaps it's embracing rest as part of your overall health. Whatever it is, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share one lesson you're committed to putting into practice. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more valuable content. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourself. Your body will thank you.